Hello, this is Sumwin, and this is my class project. This is the image that I was assigned for the class project. The devices I selected are on the slide. I had a friend recommend some things for my project. He does all the networking stuff for a casino up in the UP. I thought it was funny the stuff that he would recommend me. And when I researched it for the class project, they weren't supported anymore by the manufacturer. Kind of shows you how outdated the technology is up there. But for the router, I chose a Cisco 400, 4000 router, ISR 4461. Next would be the firewall FortiGate 900D. Comes with the 40 OS. The server I chose was a Dell PowerEdge T630 5U tower server. Going to use Windows on it. For additional software, I chose Bitdefender Gravity Zone Antivirus, Kaspersky EDR for the real-time monitoring and detection of threats. Lastly, for the server, I wanted to put in some DDoS protection by Verity. For the switch, it is a Cisco Catalyst 3850-24S. Wireless access point is a UB. I picked some difficult technology names. Ubiquiti network. For the multiple PCs, I just picked the Dell XPS 8930. I was thinking of doing thin clients, but that sounded like more imaginary work setting up. Workstation laptops are also both Dells. I think all these computers will run Windows 10 and have Norton as their antivirus for now. The PDA I chose was a HP iPAQ 11 classic handheld. The only additional software I really wanted to install in this was a program called FlexWallet. It encrypts all the data and requires passwords to open files, and it can also sync with your computer files too. For the phone, in the previous picture it looked like a landline phone, so I didn't know if I was allowed to use an iPhone or a regular phone, so I just chose a VoIP phone, voice over IP phone, and I chose one called the Grandstream GXP 2170. For the VoIP provider, I chose Intermedia Unite. I tried looking through the site that was recommended by the professor, and majority of the vulnerabilities or attack vectors were OS issues and were listed many years ago. So it seems like everything was patched already, and there was nothing really recent or anything recent. I think the earliest stuff I saw was 2018, but it was already fixed. So I just went forward with server and switch attacks instead. One thing to note was the wireless access point, the Ubiquiti network one. They did have a vulnerability in 2017 about they did not restrict access to the database, which allowed remote attackers to modify the database by directly connecting to it. Okay, for switch attacks and solutions, a CD manipulation is when CD packets are enabled on all interfaces by default on Cisco switches, and they are transmitted in clear text, which allows an attacker to analyze the packets and gain a wealth of information about the network device. Then the attacker can use this information to execute a known vulnerability against the device platform. The solution I saw was to disable CDP on non-management interfaces. For VTY line attacks, this is when Telnet enables VYTS. Telnet also transmit packets in a clear text, which can reveal to an attacker who is sniffing the network all the data transmitted through the Telnet session. Also, the Telnet service itself is vulnerable to security compromises, and an attack can crash it. For the solution, I will go with to just avoid Telnet and use SSH as possible. For MAC flooding is when the attacker floods the CAM table with MAC addresses more than the switch can store, which leads to the switch operating as a hub, giving the attacker opportunity to sniff all traffic on the segment. For this solution, you would configure port security and include port-based authentication. DHCP spoofing is a spoofing attack that listens for DHCP requests and answers them, giving its IP address as default gateway for the clients, and the attacker then becomes a man in the middle. The solution would be configuring the DHCP snooping. You would trust a specific port for all DHCP replies. If the DHC reply message was received on any port other than the one you configured for the trust, the new port will be shut down. ARP spoofing is pretty much similar to DHCP spoofing, but related to ARP messages. Solution would be just to enable dynamic ARP inspection. For switch spoofing, which is when a PC will claim to establish a trunk link between itself and the switch and gain all the VLAN information trying to get benefit of the switch default interface state. The solution will be able to disable the DTP messages on the trunk ports and avoid the switch defaults regarding trunk lines as possible. Better is to hardcore the ports, configure all the ports that should connect to the end stations as access, assign them to an unused VLAN, and then shut them down. For server attack vectors, I listed DOS attack, phishing attack, misconfiguration attacks, password attacks, Windows vulnerabilities, Bitdefender vulnerabilities, and physical access to hardware. My solution for all of these would be update and patch web servers regularly, do not use default configuration, store configuration files securely, scan the applications running on the web server for all vulnerabilities, use IDS and firewall with updated signatures, block all unnecessary protocols and services, use secure protocols, disable default accounts, follow strict access control policy, install antivirus and update it regularly. All OS and software used and should be latest and updated.